That'll have to do. I hope one of the things that you're seeing when I'm doing these sketches at the very beginning of each free art lesson, by the way, my name's Dan Nelson, hope you're having a good time watching these, is in the previous art lesson I talked about how to draw a head, and I gave you the circle and the square and shaving it down and marking it like this, and yet when I do my scribbles at the beginning you say, well, he's not doing it. That's a very good observation. The reason I'm not doing it is because it's already all up here. That's your goal, is to get to the point where these ratios, these dimensions are second nature, and you know where they go because you've practiced. Trust me, whenever I get stumped, whenever I get, that's not a very good face, but we'll let it go, won't we? So you could say I'm stumped here, but when I am, I return to actually drawing out these things to make sure that my features are in the right place. Well, I want to go today with another refinement of the human head, precisely where do the features go. You ready? Let's do it. We began with a head as a sphere, tapering down to a chin, and if you missed that free art lesson, go back and check it out. I don't want to do it all again, so I'm taking a few shortcuts here. The eyes are positioned halfway between the bottom of the chin and the top of the head, so it looks to me like that's about there. Then if we, shaving off the sides there for the temple, if we take the midpoint from there to there, that's probably at the outside of the iris. That's at a position about here on the eye. Are you with me? Let me give you another device, memory device for learning how to position the eyes. Some people have observed that the head is roughly 5 eyes wide. So if you simply take the width of the head looking straight on and divide it into 5 equal measurements, then the second and fourth of those measurements are the placement of the eyes. That might help some of you a little bit. Now, again, there's some variety. By the way, this is very interesting. At least it's interesting to me, most women's eyes are slightly farther apart. Isn't that interesting? I don't know. It's just fascinating to me. I don't know if they have better binocular vision than men. You wouldn't think so. Men do a lot of, things that require accurate depth judgment, but it's just very fascinating to me anyway. Okay, so that's roughly the position of the eyes. Let me fill those in so they don't look quite so alien-like. If we likewise find the halfway point between where the eyes were, I guess that's there, and the bottom of the chin, put a line at the halfway point, that is typically right between the bottom of the nose and the top of the mouth. Then again, reviewing, the width of the mouth is about the same as how wide the pupils of the eye are. I'm going to finish the nose real briefly because I really want to talk. And then one more thing, ears, not quite up to the eye, not quite down to the mouth. That will get us close. And you round off to taste, or of course if you're looking at a subject matter, instead of relying so much on the rote memorization of all these things, you'd be looking. But as I said before, if you're looking at a model, if you're looking at someone, if you're drawing a portrait, it helps if you already have most of these dimensions sort of tucked under your belt where you can do them second nature. Then you're not struggling to get things like this right. And you can look at a human figure, you can look at a human face and say, well, you know what? Their eyes are just a little bit closer together than this, or their mouth seems to me a little bit higher or lower, that kind of thing. So you make those adjustments, and that helps a great deal in achieving a likeness. Now, I want to move on to, this is so far so good for a head looking straight on, but you know what? That's the most boring view of the human head. So let's move on to what happens when we turn that head to the side. Here's where that longitudinal line that I talked about comes in and is very helpful. Let's turn this head a little bit to the right and down a little bit. Fair enough? So I'm going to have a person that's looking slightly to the side and down. Now, I'm already doing, in my mind, a number of calculations. Do you remember? If you were with me on some of the earlier sessions, I said our goal is to be able to envision these as three-dimensional shapes. It doesn't really do us much good to only see them as flat two-dimensional shapes on the paper, because human beings are not flat and two-dimensional. You've probably figured this out. So if you want to draw one, you have to be able to visualize it like this. So I'm already taking all the calculations we did in earlier lessons and turning it in my mind. But here, this line right here, this longitudinal line, that's the line that runs straight down the center of the face. That has already now determined for me how this head, how this face is turned. Does that make sense? Now, I also want to do the latitudinal line, the line that was right through the middle of the head that the eyes are on. Okay? Those two lines right there, and I still very often, not always, but I very often will draw those two, not just visualize them, but actually literally draw them when I'm beginning to draw a human head, because it helps so much to get them in position. Now, are you ready? This whole exercise just got more complex by quantum leaps, didn't it? Because now everything's not all straight we're looking on. It's at an angle, so we have to figure out, well, let me see. This eye would go about here, eye socket here. I'm looking at it from the side. We're going to do eyes in a further lesson, by the way, so we'll come back to. But you have to see that there's a socket, there's a cheekbone there. The nose, which rests on this longitudinal line, but of course extends out from it. Now we're seeing that nose partly in three dimensions instead of straight on. So it may look something more like that. And then the mouth would look more like this. And forgive me, I may be just drawing an absolute dog of a face here, but let me try to get it a little bit closer and see how we're doing. But this is certainly an example of how you need to be able to take that shape that when we were heading straight on was so simple, wasn't it? And you need to see it as a three-dimensional shape. So now we're turning it. But I'm still thinking, you know, the ear comes almost up to the line of the eyes. Do you see that? And it almost comes down to the mouth. And so on and so forth. And of course, we put some hair on here. It'll help it look just a little bit more human. The neck, we've done very little with talking about the neck yet. We may do that later when we come to doing the whole figure. Something like that. I'm going to give this a little more pronounced chin, a little bit more of a lip. Let me do another one that's pretty bad. We'll let it stand. Let me do another one turned at a different angle. Are you with me? I'm convinced that if you're trying to do this with me, that maybe mine don't look too bad. Let's go back to a head that we're looking at straight on, but instead of it looking straight toward us, the head is turned downward. That'll be, maybe I should have done that first to be a little simpler. So a head that is pointed straight at us, do you remember, was something like this. We cut off the sides and the eyes are here, and the nose, mouth, okay? What happens if we simply take that head and turn it down? Well, several things. You have to be able to visualize this. And I'm going to just draw right on this same sphere. In effect, the eyes will become lower on the face. And of course, the eyes will be largely hidden because instead of seeing eyes, we'll simply be seeing the arch of the eyebrow. And the nose, of course, my nose is getting lower, right? It is. So the tip of the nose will come down here, and instead of seeing it straight on, we'll be seeing the nose more from the top, which means it'll be more of just a point, a triangle shape like that. The mouth, the chin will disappear will almost disappear to a large degree. Are you with me? This is the kind of thing that you need to be able to see. Now here's one very, very clear marker. If you want to really be clear that a human head is turned down like this, do you know what changes, what ratios change more than anything else is the position of the ears. Because when we're looking straight on, the ears are right between the eyes and the mouth. If a head turns like this, the ears now are way up here. Do you see that? And that one simple change will do more to indicate that this head is turned down than any other simple measurement. That's also, by the way, why it's difficult to answer the question, where do the ears go in relation to the face? Because look at my face, and you tell me, where are my ears? Right now, what are they? They're probably even with my chin at the bottom, would you say? Now, even with my mouth and my eyes, now going, do you see that? So the question, where do the ears go? It depends entirely on the orientation of the head. Does that make sense? And again, let me restate that everything I'm teaching you here is little memory devices to get a human figure roughly correct. The most important skill toward being an artist is actually simply being able to look at what you're looking at and to see it with detail, with accuracy. So there's a head, more or less. It's not too bad. Turned down toward us. Now, let me go to another one. I can do it on this page. Let's do another simpler one. I did the 3/4 view, which was most difficult. I'm backing up and giving you a little simpler assignments. Let's take a head now that is going to stay on this level, but instead of being pointed straight toward us, is simply going to be turned at an angle like that. You with me? So first we did a head straight on. Then the second thing I did a few minutes ago is I turned it both down and away, which made it much more complicated. Here, simply down. Now let's do one simply turned to the side. So I'm going back and doing some exercises that aren't quite as complex. So if the head is simply turned to the side, then the rule that the eyeballs are in the middle of the head stays firm. Do you follow that? The eyes don't move up or down. That's a little bit high, I think. Here's the eye. And likewise, this line here, nose is here, mouth is here. But we're going to turn the head this way. So now the eyes are there, the nose, is there, and the mouth is about there. You can just continue to practice these exercises, do them over and over and over, and of course at the same time be looking at real models, looking at real people, and drive your family and friends crazy by drawing their face all the time. Actually, I've rarely had trouble with people getting upset, but the problem is if they're not holding still for you, they're moving. Talk about a challenge. Draw a person when they're moving, which is most of the time what people are doing. Well, that's probably good enough for now. Next time when we come back, I'm going to do some of the features. How to draw an eye, how to draw a nose, how to draw a mouth. Again, I hope you're having a good time. If you want to dialogue with me, go to my website at dannelsonart.com. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.